Hello everyone, this is the one and only Swaxor of SolForge Team A1 Alliance coming to you with a very special video. It's spoiler season once again, and I'm going to go over the most interesting of the cards that we have seen thus far from the upcoming set 5, named Reign of Varna. And first up, we have the Echoes cycle. This is of course a cycle of 4 legendary spells, all of which have an effect that trigger at the end of this turn and the next at level 1s and 2. And then at level 3, it repeats for each of your end steps. The first one, Immortal Echoes, was the first one to be previewed. It is a Varna's Pact sort of reprint-ish. There are some key differences. Number one is the level 1 can only fetch creatures that are level 2 or lower. It's random placement, and it's only creatures that you control that died. So it's a vastly different card. It's actually potentially card advantage at player level 1, but at the same time, it's actually most likely worse at player level 2. It's a different card to be certain. Where I can see this is maybe if Crypt Conjure decks are still popular, depending on whether or not nerfs will happen to Duskmaw, Hermit, Conjure itself, or whatever, because it's a threat that will trigger Conjure once. But at the same time, where Varna's Pact had the strength of potentially getting back your your high drops late in the game off the level 1 Varna's Pact, this does not have that option. And cards like Zemus the Undying are not being played, which was another card that made Varna's Pact incredibly strong. Tarsus Deathweaver no longer pumps itself. So I see a lot of things going against this card, and in the end, I can maybe see it if there is an NT variant playing Everflame Mystic, because getting a creature off of Everflame Mystic is always very strong. And so that will be where I could see this card if it were to be playable. Next up, we have Rakhana Geckos, which is the Tempe spell. At level 1, it says deal 1 to 10 damage to an opponent, and at level 2 and 3, it's 1 to 20 damage. This card is very interesting. Incinerate did win a tournament once in a time very far gone, back when Flame Shaper used to trigger off any spell. In what basically ended up becoming the Stasis Warden deck. Back then without Stasis Wardens. This is the sort of card that's very linear in design, but potentially very strong if the support is there. If you have an aggressive deck that can reliably get free spell triggers off of cards like Assyrian Flame Sculptor or Everflame Mystic, and at the same time put enough pressure on it that you're not just going to sit with this card in your hand for most of the game, that you're actually, and also has the critical mass of burn, that means that late in the game, you're going to be able to draw 2 burn spells most turns, and burn your opponent out in a few turns. The main thing I see going against this card is the fact that Howl of Sith is right now very popular, and that can just straight up mitigate any sort of burn deck strategy. But I'm still expecting the Tempe's ambush card to trigger on health gain, which we'll get to that mechanic later. But again, as is Rakhana Geckos, much like the Necrium one, if there is a deck, if the support is there, this could be a very good tool for that deck. It's a role player. It's in no way like a defining card of any sort, and I can't see it being too good, really. At the same time, both of these cards come with a lot of variants attached, because both have quite a few single, should we say, values to choose from. So, yeah. It's interesting. I think it's about on par and power level with the Necrium one. So, we'll see how that goes. Thirdly, we have Lucid Echoes, which was the third one previewed. This is probably the most powerful of the cycle. This card says draw a card and then draw 2 cards at level 2 and 3. The thing is, drawing cards at the end of your turn is it's just about as good as drawing them at the start of your next turn. Which means this card essentially lets you potentially play gnomes for free for 2 turns. So that's powerful. That's very powerful. As a supplement to the strategies that already play Gog's Energy Search, I could definitely see this card being very powerful. If these decks are going to be good, there's every chance that either Fate is just going to come and rain on their parade, or one of the the new ambush cards, the Necrium one, I believe it is, or Anvilon Arbiter, Like, it definitely lends a lot of consistency to these decks. I'm not sure the decks inherently will be good enough, because it seems like Stoneblade is taking a liking towards printing cards that punish people for doing unfair things, such as abusing free plays or token generation, which personally I'm fine with. I think a game of SolForge should be played based on your leveling decisions and the creature combat with the creatures you play from your hand. I think that is the simplest, rawest form, and if something broken comes along, I like that there are answers. So, with that said, again, I'm pretty sure this has the biggest chance of being a centerpiece of a deck, whereas the others might be sort of replaceable role-player cards. But I'm definitely interested to see what impact this will have, whether it will bring gnomes back to the spotlight, and whether the ambush cards that we've seen so far are enough to punish that right back down to the ground. But that's sort of the relation between cards that I like to see. Like, the meta is able to shift itself because some cards are just so inherently strong against specific archetypes. So last up we have Ancestral Echoes. This one is weird because a card like Ferocious Roar is very good because you can play it pre-battling and get some nice trades. But this card triggers at the end of your turn. So you need to be ahead on the board. What it does do is allow you to play 2 creatures next turn, which will both get the benefit if you really want them to. But at the same time, I should just say what it gives +1/+2, level 1, and +2/+4 at level 2, so it doubles. But at the same time, again, this is just much, much less flexible than a card like Ferocious Roar or Verdant Charge, or Twin Strength for that matter. And that might be enough to just mean that if you want this kind of effect, you're going to be playing Patriarch, or Lifeblood Dryad, or Ferocious Roar, or Verdant Charge, or I can't remember its name, Whispers of Tendre, the Howl of Zeth variant in Utera. Like, I'm seeing, if there's a deck, once again, Everflame Mystic is the best friend of all of these cards. If there is a Utera Tempest deck that actually wants to play Everflame Mystic, this card will probably go in that deck, because Utera Tempest has a habit of having a lot of creatures with, like, breakthrough and mobility that just love to get pumped the heck up. And Mystic benefits from this a lot himself, too. So, if that's a thing, the card will probably be played. Otherwise, I don't really see it. In a grow-wide strategy, I'd rather have one of the effects that actually makes sure your creatures survive this turn, rather than next. I get that you can set this up very well, which might just be enough to push it to playability, but the turn after, you might, like, sure, if you can, like, go Relic Scout, Lifeblood Dryad, fill the board, and then trigger this at end of turn, yeah, you're pretty far ahead, but that's kind of a dream scenario, and I think I'd rather just stick to the Lifeblood Dryads, to be honest. Next up we have, as mentioned earlier, the ambush cards. Ambush is a mechanic that is active as long as this card is in your hand. So what these cards do is Leyline Sentry says whenever a creature an opponent controls enters the field, if he didn't play it from his hand, you get to put the Sentry onto the field for free and discard and level it. The reason it's worded like that is because you can actually only play cards during your own turn, so they have to write it out as you do everything that's attached to playing a card without actually playing the card. And Leyline Demon, which could also be really bad. Like if you have 3 of these guys in your hand and your opponent plays an Arbiter and something that makes a token, you have to play these. You get to play 2 of them and discard your hand. That's not the case. That's probably another good reason why. Then you have Leyline. Also, of course, I'm interrupting myself constantly, but what happens is SolForge is, of course, an asynchronous game, so they can't really have you be able to make decisions on your own turn. So you don't get to decide how to play them, and and then there's basically no reason to have them be actual plays. Again, because Arbiter would be too punishing. Then you have Leyline Demon, which, speaking of Arbiter, triggers off the 3rd spell played by an opponent this turn. So both of these cards, once again, as I mentioned before, punish these effects that go beyond the basic rules of SolForge, such as generating extra plays or generating extra creatures. I am very much expecting the Tempest one to include to have a clause that puts it onto the field if your opponent gains so much health, or just any amount of health, because that's been an issue lately. But overall, yeah, these cards are very good. I love this kind of effect because, again, it leads to an automatically dynamic metagame, in that if ever, like, Brook Queen becomes too strong, there's just going to be an AN deck with 3 of each of these, and suddenly both Tracker and Brook Queen are just getting hosed hard. Or if Stasis Warden becomes the best deck, then, again, these guys are just going to come right in and destroy them. And there's actually another card that hosts a Stasis Warden, the Sparkstone Elemental, which is not... I don't have the picture in this video because it's not that important, but it's the 5/8/8/11 15/18 that just says as long as it's on the field, nothing can get Defender and everything loses Defender. So it's like Stasis Warden, Defender, the whole board, and you just play it in front of their Stasis Warden, eat the Stasis Warden, and attack for a whole bunch. And their future Wardens don't do shit. That card's pretty cool. But anyway, again, if Stasis Warden becomes too popular, there's Leyline Demon that's just going to hose it. If Gnomes become too popular, Leyline Demon's going to come right in. If, like, the Grow-Wide strategies become too popular with, like, Relic Scout and Nova, you have both Sentry and Leyline Demon. So, I think these cards will play a big role in sort of keeping the metagame fair. Again, something I really, really enjoy. So, yeah, that is quite cool, and I can't wait to see what kind of an effect these cards have on the meta. Now I would like to talk about these 3 Utera creatures, which I just want to refer to as the big guys, because these are just... these are probably some of the most efficient creatures SolForge has ever seen. First up, we have Shardplate Behemoths, which is a 0, 10, 0, 15, 0, 25. Which seems pretty innocuous at first, but then you realize that it has the ability... which is akin to Lightspawn from Hearthstone, which I assume is the main inspiration, or Dorn the Siege Tower out of Magic, which says that its attack is always equal to its health. This is assumed to mean that if you play something that just boosts its attack, won't affect it at all. If you play something that just boosts its health, it will affect both. So, this card is a 10/10 underdog, is what I'm seeing. Like, you could play it as a 10/10, as a blocker, kill something. Like, it feels sort of like an Ebon Skull Knight in that way, except it's bigger, which is just crazy. Well, Ebon Skull Knight in that it enters the field, eats something, survives, and then it just withers away. Whereas this guy just gets blocked by something because he becomes so much smaller. But, like, along with a card like Brawn, this card just doesn't die. Like, healing effects legitimately boost this guy very, very well. Personally, I'd probably like to see the stats reduced at, like, 1-3. I think the level 2 is fine. Maybe slightly too powerful still. Like, in my opinion, it could easily be, like, 8, 14, 20, and still be a very good card. As is, I am afraid of what kind of effect this card will have in the meta, and we'll just have to see. The other card is Snowdrift Alpha. The reason I just want to mention this is just that the card is bonkers, man. Like, have you seen those stats at level 3? It's like, this is like a reverse Stonefish Giant. Like, it's still sort of fair because it does trade with most things at level 3, but a level 3 free Hunting Pack. Like, Hunting Pack is borderline playable in draft. Because unlike something like Ether Hounds, which scales horribly, Hunting Pack actually doubles in size, as does this guy. And the token he makes doubles in size. And you can play this guy and next turn have a board full of 12 8s. And this guy's still on the field. Jeez, man, that is some power. And this guy might just see constructed play because of that. I hope not, because Christ, he's obnoxiously big. Just slap a Savage Oath on that guy and go to town. And then you have in draft, where I think this guy will be an absolute pain in the neck, because if you can't kill him the first turn, he's gonna get more Hunting Packs. And he's like, it's not like he has a bad size at the other levels. He's like a Featherfang with an absurd level 3. That's also strictly better at the other levels because, hey, he actually puts guys on the field for free. Like, I would love to see if it was like, sacrifice one of your creatures to put Hunting Pack into play. That would make sense. That would be like, there's a corpse here. and the wolves sniff it out and come to eat it, or like the wolves hunt down something to give birth to more, and because they survive, they can give birth to more wolves. That will make sense. This is kind of ridiculous. And thirdly, we have the Swamp Moss Ancient, which is a very interesting design. It's a card without a level 3. It just stops leveling at 2, which I think is great. I think it's great that they do these designs. And it's 7/7, 12/12. So basically, save for the 1 point of health at level 1, it's just a strictly better Tangle Sprout. And it's a dinosaur. Like, plant is all well and good, but plants haven't really seen the support and constructed that they might deserve. Dinosaurs, however, are the talk of the town of Utera creatures right now. And like, this card with Bramblewood Tracker is the best, because it's already like among the biggest Utera underdrops you can play with the card. But the fact that it doesn't level to 3, because when I've played Tracker Queen, one of the problems I've had a lot is that sometimes I simply just draw too many level 3s at level 3, and Tracker is not very good on its own, size-wise, when your opponent is also just jamming level 3s. Level 3s. Having this guy in the deck ensures that you will much more often have something to play off of him, which is still going to be a decently strong body. And also, he's a dinosaur. Like, big dumb animals might just come back with Behemoth and Ancient, because they both work very well with Brawn, in that one is a dinosaur and the other wants to be healed. Just sort of a good old-fashioned big dumb animals deck with Azurian Brawler, Tangle Sprout, these guys, and just fill out with more dinosaurs and then Brawn. It could easily be a deck that's viable. And I'm going to be interested to see that. Because something I also like is that Brew Queen is one of the decks that actually gets hosed quite a lot by the new ambush cards. But the dinosaur deck doesn't as much, and if the greatest fear is just like creatures that don't level well attacking your face and player level 1, I think the meta is actually doing quite fine. Like, I remember the old Big Dumb Animals deck with Korok. Like, now they have Ator, which is just a strictly, well, not strictly, but it's a much better card, to be frank. It's just a better card. Pardon me. And so, yeah, I'm excited for all these 3 cards. I'm quite afraid of what Snowdrift Alpha will do to draft and what Behemoth will do to constructed. But we'll just have to see. I don't think they'll be over the top too powerful, but there is some potential there that could get out of hand. I think Sharplight Behemoth is one of those cards where I don't think it's going to be really unfun. I think the design is, I was about to say inherently fair, but I don't actually think it is. I think it's just like slightly too, shall we say, pushed. So, yeah, interesting to see what happens with them. And then finally, just for the sake of it, I have the final 2 legendaries that we've seen, because they're legendaries. They're what we're supposed to talk to about the set. And the first one, Spoiled. I'm gonna take these bottom to top. Screw your writing order. We have Smolder Scale Dragon, which is a 0, 6, 2, 10, 25, 25, with Defender at the first 2 levels, and the ability that says, at the end of your turn, deal 1, 2, 5 damage to each creature your opponent controls. This is an interesting card, because like if you just have the level 1 and level 3, you see it's slightly better than Scorchmane Dragon. The main difference here is the level 2 is vastly worse than level 2 Scorchmane Dragon. So it's really a matter of whether or not that makes up for it. And where I could see this card is if the AT Invoker Gox deck comes back into popularity, because this card does supplement Flamebreak Invoker quite well. And also, you have the tools to actually be able to level this card twice. And I think this card would be better than Iron Maiden in a deck like that, because you would much rather play this card on its own, rather than discard to level it, than you would Iron Maiden for the first 2 levels. And the level 3, like, when you have a 25-25 mobility 2 that burns for 5 to all their guys every turn, you're not really concerned with closing the game out quickly, because you're gonna win. Probably, most likely. So yeah, that's where I could see this card. NT, probably not. I've already thought about cutting Scorchmane from Duskmane Dragons, because the level 3 just doesn't, the level 1 just doesn't do enough. And in a world where where the level 2 also doesn't do anything, I don't know. So again, if there is an AT deck that wants to play dragons, this would be a dragon to play. Then we have Steel Eye Seer, which is a 012, 012, 08, 012, 018 with Defender across all the levels, and it has the ability that says activate to level a card in your hand. If that card is higher level than your current rank, discard it. So this is what... Oh, the hell is it called? I can't even remember. Synapses Oracle, I want to say. That's probably it. Synapses Oracle always wanted to be. Because the thing with Synapses Oracle was that, like, however many cards you got to level with it when you drew it, wouldn't necessarily guarantee that you drew them. This guy guarantees that you have on-level cards. Like, this is a good mix between Delpha and Synapses Oracle. Also, Synapses Oracle always died in 2 turns. Because never got to be activated more than once because you play it, then they play a guy in front of it. Then it's your turn, they battle, you discard something. Then it's their turn, they battle, yours dies. This is not the case with this guy. He actually survives for another turn. So, like, putting Defender on a card like this is really dangerous. Like, this is exactly what this kind of card wants to have. Like, I can only pray that there's gonna be some other Defender hoser. Like, again, Sparkstone Elemental is actually very good against this card, because it turns it into a Synapses Oracle without attack. So, there might be something there, I don't know. But I think if I'm going to play a 10-piece deck, I'm going to play at least 1 or 2 Sparkstones. I should have had that on this video, now that I think about it. But, no, let's not go there. Let's not go there. Both these cards are interesting. I have no idea where the Steel Eye Seer would be played. I know Kit got the preview, so maybe he was involved with some QA with a deck where that card was good. I don't know. Maybe. But, with all that said, this set is looking good. Save for the Utera creatures that seem quite pushed, I think the cards are decidedly fair and overall very interesting designs, which is something I definitely like to see. Like, we had set 3, which was just over-the-top good cards, which just didn't... They were, like, blatantly good. And the same went for 3.1, which was also just, like, Rage of Cadres and Tracker, which were always like, well, this card's pretty damn incredible. And set 4 had less of that. Like, it had the Herald Cycle and stuff. But then we had 4.1 and 4.2, which were both just, like, again, more power cards. We had Progeny of Sith, but the Legendaries were overall not very interesting designs. Here we have seen 6 Legendaries so far. 7 Legendaries, pardon me. And only one of them is, like, obviously very, very powerful. Which is the Behemoth. So, I definitely like the direction they've taken. I think this is going to lead to a lot of interesting gameplay, a lot of meta diversity, which I can definitely appreciate. My only hope is that the cards that we already have won't skew the meta too much towards just power creatures, because that's how it's been recently. Like, I hope these cards are powerful enough while also keeping things interesting to actually have an impact. But I guess we'll see about that. So from Swagzor of A1 Alliance, this has been a brief overview of the interesting cards out of the upcoming set, Reign of Varna, and I'll see you all next time.